Good morning. I'm Jeff Kuchenbecker. I'm the treasurer of Lutheran Men in Mission. But this morning I really wanted to just spend a couple of minutes recognizing that today is Veterans Day. And to start that off, I know a couple of you guys certainly are veterans. Who among us is a veteran? I knew that, yep, Bill, Dan, who else? Somebody on this side? Bill, I'm wondering if you would mind standing up, telling us a little bit about your history with the military, the service, the branch of the service that you were in, when you entered it, and maybe just a little bit about that.
Okay. I actually entered the service when I was still in high school. Back then you could join up when you were 17 and a half, and I joined the Army Reserve out of Milwaukee, and I actually attended reserve meetings through my senior year of high school. And then, of course, when I graduated, I went to basic training in lovely Fort Leonard Wood. Barracks from the Second World War, but it was interesting. And after I graduated from basic training, they sent me down to Fort Gordon, Georgia, to military police school. And after that, I came home after 6 months and was with my reserve unit. But because I was a young father and I was going to school at the same time and working, I joined what they call the 14th Corps Manpower Pool. And at some point during that tenure, I got tapped by Mr. McNamara to go to Vietnam. However, I never made it there. I was all set to transfer to Fort Lewis, Washington, and I got a letter from the Pentagon, and I ended up transferring into the Air Force because I had some unique skills that they thought they could use in the Air Force instead. And I thought I got out of going to Vietnam, but it ended up my reserve unit in the Air Force got activated, and so I think, nope, there it is, it's back. So that was my military service. I actually did 13 years, but I never at one time had a full year of active duty. So.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Dan, I think you had your hand up. Just a little bit.
I'll try to keep it short. Similar, and my name is Dan Lindquist, for those that don't know me.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid, he says so. All right, so can you hear me now? Yes. All right, that's better. Similar, I joined the Air Force young, 1974. I went through basic training. A little story along those lines. Normally, basic training, they take you directly to technical school. There's no in between. You can't go home. My future mother-in-law called the base commander and said, Dan Lindquist has to come home because he has to get married. Make a long story short, I got 5 days in between. I got married, and from there went to tech school. Upon completion, I had 10 days to go home. My son was born, and I headed to southern Italy. So I really didn't get to know him at all until he was about 5 months old. But southern Italy was very interesting. It was a very small base. We had about 500 people there, and our role was to track the Soviet Air Force. So we had rotating schedules, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Did that for a year and a half. Back to Rantoul. Another year, and then I left the active Air Force and went into the reserves. So I was active reserve out of Milwaukee, similar, for another 3 years. So 74 to 80 was my tenure.
Thank you, brother. And someone over here, I think, was, were you saying no? Okay. All right. Actually, I'm glad it's a smaller group, a more intimate group. So I expected maybe I would have to interview thousands of people. But I was also in the military. I went into the Army in 1973, and when I told my mother that I had enlisted, she cried, because this is, the Vietnam War was still going on, and she wasn't sure what was going to happen. Well, it turned out that the Army gave me a deal that if I would just stay in, if I would, instead of just 2 years that I had enlisted for, they said, if you want to go to Germany and not Vietnam, we'll gladly take you if you want to sign up for another year. So I did take that deal. So I spent 2.5 years over in Germany after being trained. Came back after that, spent another 8 years in the Army Reserve, and ending up getting out as a captain. And I think about it in terms of, would I do it again or differently? And I don't know that I would. I mean, the opportunity that you have let me put it this way. There are those few bold and daring men and women that will join the military, and you get to play with some equipment that you've never been able to and never will again be able to use, and you have a whole library of memories of people, of places, of things that you were able to work with. And I still remember fondly, and a few not so fondly, people that I worked with. But and some of them are still living in the area. But I can't help but think that, especially these days, that I think even though we've been out of the military for a while now, for me for the regular part of my career, or in the military, it's going to be 50 years this year that I was in, and the sense of commitment to and sort of dedication to the country, particularly the Constitution of the United States, because each one of us had to make a pledge to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States when we joined, is still, I think, prevalent in my life, and I hope in all veterans that's the case, because if you knew how much Bill was a citizen of and a volunteer and such of things that he learned and grasped and came away with from his military career, I think there's a thing that happens to you when you're in the military, and for me it happened about halfway through basic training, that there is a sense of you were one way a day ago, but now you're different. And I think it's a good thing. So, especially in the country these days, I think it's highly important for us to remember, particularly us veterans, that of what we raised our hand for, and what we pledged to do, and keep on doing it. So, if you have a chance to talk to a veteran, find out what they're doing, ask questions, find out how they're doing, because a lot of them did not come back healthy, either in mind or body, and they can always use help. It is one of, but we tend not to talk about it unless somebody asks us. So God bless America for allowing us to serve the United States in the way that we did, and to recognize that every year that this country has this thing called Veterans Day. Thanks.